everybody. Thanks for joining us on our camping trip today. I'm Emcha, and I'm here with my cousin Genesis.
Hey guys.
Wow, cuz I just got my tent set up and came over here to see if you needed a hand, but it looks like you're all done here and are about to get the fire set up.
Maybe you're the one who needed help.
Hey, those tent poles can be a little tricky. Dang.
You know, one of our favorite things about camping is the campfire, but we have to make sure we're really careful with it.
That's right, because we don't want it to destroy our other favorite thing about camping, enjoying this beautiful forest.
But you know who can really tell us all about fire safety?
Who's that? Whoa, it's Smokey Bear. Hey, buddy. I am so glad that you are here because now we can start our program.
That's right, Smokey Bear Live.
You know it. So you guys sit tight and I'll be back in a bit to talk more about fire prevention tips. Welcome to Smokey Bear Live, a distance learning adventure brought to you by the USDA Forest Service and the Natural Inquirer. I'm your host, Chad Edwards, and I'm a conservation educator with the Forest Service, which manages about 193 million acres of national forests and grasslands throughout the United States. I'm so glad you could join us today to learn about wildfire prevention. I mean, this is the perfect time to learn about it because this week just so happens to be National Fire Prevention Week. Great timing, right? Now, this is an interactive program, so feel free to share any questions you have about wildfire prevention with us. How? Good question. I'm glad you asked. Just comment on this video while we're live on the FS Nature Live Facebook page. And we have a team of knowledgeable experts standing by who will be more than happy to answer you. All right? Simple. Now, because we want to hear from you, you know who else does? Smokey Bear himself. Yes. Okay, now if the name Smokey Bear sounds a little bit strange to you, this is a little fun fact. His name isn't actually Smokey the Bear, like you might hear some people say. It's just Smokey Bear. See? No middle name. Look at us learning stuff already. So let's remember, get that the out of there. No middle name on Smokey Bear. Now, Smokey Bear isn't the only expert helping us out today. Also, I'm excited to have 3 of the Forest Service's wildfire prevention experts with us. We have Beth Buchanan, Mary Latta, and Kara Yednak. Welcome. Would you all like to introduce yourselves? How about we start with you, Beth?
Hey, Chat. I'm so happy to be here today. Like you said, my name is Beth Buchanan. I am a fire ecologist. I live in Virginia and I work all around the Southeast United States.
Oh, interesting. How about you, Linda? Mary, how about you, Mary?
I'm really delighted to be here. I love talking to people about fire. My name is Mary Latta. I'm the fire ecologist for the Tonto National Forest that's in Arizona, pretty close to Phoenix.
Very cool. All right, last but certainly not least, you want to say hi, Kara?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm a fire physicist here in Madison, Wisconsin, and I work on fire-related questions all around the country. Thanks, Samchat.
All right, and thanks for joining us. All right, that's enough about us. Let's talk about what we're really here to learn about today. We're going to talk about fire science, good fire versus bad fire, Smokey's 5 rules for wildfire prevention, and careers in wildland fire. So those are our learning objectives today. The goal is really to explain what you can do to help prevent wildfires. Yes, what you can do to prevent wildfires. So before we dive in, let me just mention that today we won't be talking much about how we put fires out after they've started. And that's because we already talked a lot about that in our last Smokey Bear Live program. So after you're done with this one, You might as well go back and take a look at that one too, right? Hint, hint, wink, wink, wink. Okay, so before we talk about preventing fire, let's first figure out just what in the world fire actually is. You know, Genesis is really smart and is just a whiz when it comes to explaining scientific concepts. So let's check back in with her and see if she can help us figure this all out.
Thanks, MChat.
Sure thing. So, what do you think, Genesis? Can you tell us a little bit about what fire is?
Absolutely. Fire actually isn't just flames. It's a chemical process that involves the breaking down of a material, such as a log, with combustion.
And combustion is another word for burning.
Right. Combustion usually produces heat, light, and smoke.
Nice. So, fire is the chemical process, but can you tell us what a fire needs in order to start?
Sure. Fire really needs three things to ignite: oxygen, heat, and fuel. By fuel, we mean whatever the fire is burning. There's natural fuels like grass and shrubs, and there's human-made fuels like houses and trash.
Since fire needs those three things, oxygen, heat, and fuel, they make up the three sides of the fire triangle.
Now, even though all fires are composed of the same ignition, don't be fooled into thinking that means they're all alike.
Ah, good point. Fires vary drastically in heat, size, intensity, behavior, and patterns.
A lot of these differences are caused by the kinds of fuel the fire is burning.
Right, because a fire that's burning grass is going to look a lot different than a fire that's burning a house.
These differences make fire really difficult to predict, and that's why they can be so dangerous.
True. Of course, it's not always dangerous. You all watching this probably realize that there are good fires and bad fires.
Fire can be great. It can keep us warm, cook our food.
And it makes some s'mores taste amazing.
But those are fires that happen on purpose. When unplanned fires begin burning areas like forests and grasslands, they're called wildfires. But even wildfires can be good fires. They often clear out underbrush and even remove some invasive plants. This means there's less fuel for big wildfires.
Right. So if a wildfire does break out, it won't be as large or last as long. The science of a fire's natural relationship in an ecosystem is called fire ecology.
Some ecosystems depend on natural wildfires to help renew its landscape and resources. And some species of plants and animals need wildfires in order to survive. In fact, some tree species, like lodgepole pines, longleaf pines, and aspens, need fire to stimulate their growth.
Fires are an important and necessary part of the life cycle for many different kinds of ecosystems. For as long as forests and grasslands have existed, fires have burned there.
These are naturally occurring wildfires, and they're caused by things like lightning, volcanic activity, and coal seams.
Regardless, wildfires can actually be beneficial to some areas. That's why there are experts who use controlled fires to help our forests and grasslands. Yep, you heard me correctly.
These are called prescribed fires or controlled burns. They are planned out and carefully prepped and monitored.
But I want to be clear to everyone watching. Only professionals should attempt to create prescribed fires. Never, ever, 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 ever try this on your own.
These professionals create burn plans and take lots of things into consideration.
Like the best conditions, temperature, humidity, wind, moisture, smoke dispersal, and even what's going on the ground. It takes lots of different folks thinking about a lot of different effects. So again, only professionals should attempt this.
It's a process that takes science and knowledge. It's sort of like a doctor prescribing medication.
Ooh, good analogy. Doctors only prescribe the medicine they think will work and carefully consider the amount. In the same way, wildfire experts use their knowledge and training to consider the best time and places for controlled burns.
So fire can be a really good thing, but as you know, wildfires can also be really dangerous. Just last year in California, over 2 million acres were impacted by wildfires.
This can result in the loss of forests, grasslands, wildlife, personal property, and in the worst case, even human lives.
You can think of it like a hurricane. It can cause massive destruction for entire regions. In fact, just like a hurricane, wildfires are considered natural hazards.
Natural hazards are massive disasters that can decimate areas and even make them uninhabitable. In fact, some natural hazards have shaped human history and society, like earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, and wildfires.
But just because we call them natural, these hazards aren't always caused by nature. It's important that we all do our part to keep our fires and campfires under control. Remember that 9 out of 10 wildfires are actually caused by people.
It's especially important if you live near or in a large natural area. If that's the case, you probably live in what's called a wildland urban interface, or WUI. The WUI is an area where homes are built next to or in forests, grasslands, or other natural areas.
So it's important for people who live in the WUI to help prevent wildfires. That way they don't lose their homes. If you're interested in learning more about the WUI, be sure to check out the Natural Inquirer publications issue called Wildland Fire 2, which is free to order or download.
One way to help is to make what's called a defensible space.
A defensible space is a buffer you make around your home and other buildings by removing surrounding flammable wild growth. A defensible space should extend outward from your house anywhere from 30 to 200 feet.
The area doesn't have to remove every single shrub and tree, but consider taking out just the more flammable ones and spread those out a bit.
The idea is that if a wildfire breaks out and reaches your property, it will be difficult for the flames to touch your house.
Defensible spaces are important, especially in areas like California that need special attention. Places like the West Coast get really dry during certain times of the year. This means they're really prone to wildfires during these seasons. Be sure to know what the regulations are where you live and camp.
Keep up to date, too. These regulations adapt over time because of climate change. As the climate of an area evolves, it might become more prone to wildfires than it once was.
So yes, wildfires can be absolutely devastating, and they are largely caused by us. But that also comes with some good news.
It means that we can also prevent most wildfires from happening.
And that is where our homeboy, Smokey Bear, comes in.
Since 1944, Smokey has been keeping us informed with the best strategies to keep our lands safe from fire. In fact, over the years, he's come up with Smokey Bear's 5 rules of wildfire prevention.
Number 1, only you can prevent wildfires.
Number 2, always be careful with fire.
Number 3, never play with matches or lighters.
Number 4, always watch your campfire.
Number 5, make sure your campfire is completely out before leaving it. Let's take a look at each individual rule.
Rule 1, only you can prevent wildfires. Sorry, only you can prevent wildfires.
Almost 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by people. So it's up to all of us to do our part in preventing those wildfires from happening.
But that didn't used to be Smokey's slogan, right?
That's true. If you're old, kind of like me, you'll remember that Smokey Bear used to say, only you can prevent forest fires.
So why did he change that to wildfires?
Well, humans don't just cause fires in forests. Fires can also burn our countries, grasslands, and other types of ecological communities.
Oh, gotcha. We have to remember to keep all of our lands and people safe from uncontrolled fire.
Right on. Also, remember that some people cause wildfires on purpose. Keep an eye out for suspicious activity, and be sure to tell the rangers or campground hosts if you see anything.
Rule 2, ABC, always be careful with fire. We're going to give you some things to look out for and tips that you can talk about with your parents or other adults.
In some places in the country, people collect debris on their property to burn in a pile. In some areas, this is illegal, so be sure to know what your local laws are.
But let's say your parents have collected a bunch of dead twigs and branches around your yard, and they want to burn them. Before they burn a pile of debris, they should always take a minute to check a few things.
Clear out the area around the pile so that there aren't any leaves, pine needles, or other flammable things nearby.
Also, look up. Make sure there isn't anything hanging over the debris pile.
For that matter, the burn pile shouldn't be too tall because you're going to want to keep it under control.
Lastly, never burn debris in high winds. The wind could send the embers around your property and catch other things on fire.
In fact, Smokey has something to say about burning debris, so let's watch this video.
Observe the domesticated human family in their natural habitat, known to their species as the backyard.
Hey, you think I should light it now? I think it's good. Yeah?
Oh dear, someone is about to burn a pile of debris that's too tall, which can start a wildfire. Wait, could it be? Blimey, it is.
It's Smokey.
It's Smokey Bear. What a legend.
Hey, it's Smokey. Sorry, it was too high. Right.
Watch as he astutely ensures that there's no wind, and how he removes some of the debris to create a smaller, safer burning pile.
Told me to make it big.
No, you said make it bigger, baby. The bigger, the better.
Take note of our fearless furry friend here, humans.
I appreciate it. Fist bump.
Watching you.
Smokey's done it again.
Bye, Smokey.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Nice job, Smokey.
You know, I bet you love a grilled hot dog or burger, or at least melting a marshmallow over the grill.
You can help your parents after they're done grilling. Pour lots of water on the charcoal briquettes and ash, stir them, and then drown it again.
Use the back of your hand to check to see if it's still hot.
Remember, if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave.
So, if it is still hot, keep stirring and soaking it until the hot coals are extinguished.
Smokey would like to chime in again about charcoal grills. Here's another video.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear. Call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha, 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 ha.
See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
Educational and tasty, Smokey.
Another important tip for your parents is to remove the woody debris in the forested areas. Sometimes, usually after a rough storm, trees get knocked down.
And if they're left alone too long, they dry out and become really easy fuel for fire to burn. By removing this woody debris, we take away a lot of what wildfires need to keep burning.
You can also be aware of the ways that vehicles can cause wildfires. Lots of trailers, for example, have safety chains connected to the front where they attach to the back of your vehicle.
You can help your parents or other adults be sure these chains and other metal parts aren't dragging. If they make contact with the ground, they can actually cause sparks and catch the surrounding area on fire.
Likewise, driving on an exposed wheel rim can cause sparks, so be sure your parents check their tire pressure often.
And the other thing that can spark are brake pads, so your parents should make sure that those don't wear too thin.
Also, parents should be careful driving through or parking on dry grass or brush. Hot exhaust pipes can catch the grass on fire.
There are many ways that lawn equipment can cause wildfires too. Metal lawnmower blades striking rocks can create sparks and start fires. So, if you're helping your parents mow, be careful on hot, dry days, and be sure to get your equipment checked regularly.
If you do mow, do it before 10 a.m. when it's cooler outside, but never mow when it's windy or excessively dry.
In wildland areas, your parents are required to use spark arresters on all portable, gasoline-powered equipment.
A spark arrestor is a device that traps or destroys hot exhaust particles. They can be used on tractors, harvesters, chainsaws, weed eaters, and lawnmowers. Spark arresters greatly reduce the risk of starting a wildfire.
Your folks should keep the exhaust system, spark arresters and engine in proper working order, and free from carbon buildup. They should use the recommended grade of fuel, and they shouldn't fill to the point of overflowing.
When doing any yard work or work outdoors with mechanical equipment, keep a shovel and a fire extinguisher handy.
In wildland areas, if your parents are doing any grinding or welding, they'll need a permit and at least a 10-foot buffer away from anything that could catch fire.
Rule 3, never play with matches or lighters.
Come on, y'all, this one should be pretty obvious. If you ever need to use a match or a lighter, please ask an adult for help.
We don't want to see you hurt the land or yourself. Rule 4, always watch your campfire. Like we said before, one of the best things about camping is making a campfire. I love the warmth, the yummy s'mores, the ghost stories.
Oh, no. Please, no more ghost stories. I did not like your last one.
You didn't like any of them.
I mean, that's it. Anyway, campfires are great, but you should always be careful with them. Never walk away from one while it's still burning.
You should never leave it unattended because it could grow beyond your control.
Here are some tips for controlling your campfire before you even build one.
First off, don't make one at all if you're not allowed to at the campgrounds, area, event, or wherever you're camping. Some places prohibit them for safety and they'll post their warnings on signs or on their websites. So try to find out the rules before you even get there. Know before you go.
Second, even if you are allowed to make a campfire, don't do it in hazardous or dry conditions.
If the campgrounds already have an existing fire ring, use it instead of creating a new one. The folks who made the campgrounds will have already put it in a safe location.
If you do have to make a new fire pit, make sure that it's at least 15 feet away from tents, shrubs, trees, or other flammable objects. Also, beware of low-hanging branches.
When you pick a spot, make sure that it's clear, level, and not windy. Clear out 10 feet of grass, twigs, leaves, pine needles, firewood, and other debris around the campfire spot. Then dig a 1-foot pit for the fire to help keep it contained.
Now you're almost ready to make that campfire. One last idea is to remove any rocks from the area.
Wait, that can't be right. Lots of campers like to use a ring of rocks around their fire to keep it contained. That should help prevent wildfires, right?
Yeah, that's true. But the reality is that fire can actually make rocks explode.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, no one is sure exactly why, but the prevailing theory is that some rocks have moisture trapped inside of them. The heat from the fire causes the water to evaporate and bursts right out of the rock.
Wow. Okay, so for your safety, it's best to use some kind of metal ring instead of rocks to contain your campfires.
You got it. Now, let's watch this video simulation from In-Car and U-Car Science.
This video simulation follows a real wildfire that devastated the town and surrounding area of Paradise, California. It consumed an area of over 150,000 acres, destroyed more than 18,000 buildings, caused over $16 billion in damages, and, worst of all, claimed at least 85 human lives, making it the deadliest and most destructive wildfire in California's history, and the most expensive natural hazard worldwide in 2018. The fire burned for 17 days before it was contained, but most of the damage was done in the first 4 hours. The simulation also shows how high winds encouraged the spread of the fire. Likewise, the area had received less rain than usual that year, making the region very dry. Always consider the conditions of an area before making any fire.
Thanks, guys.
So make sure this doesn't happen to you and keep an eye on your campfire.
Rule 5, make sure your campfire is completely out before leaving it.
It's really easy to look at a fire that's almost out and think, oh, that'll burn out on its own.
But really, that's usually when the embers are at their hottest, and it's not too difficult for a wind gust to snatch one and set the woods on fire.
However, there's a really easy method to follow to make sure that your fire is out cold. Ready? Pour, stir, pour. And that's it.
First, you drown your fire in water, then you stir it with a shovel until the embers are out. Then it needs to cool down, so drown it in water again. After that, check the heat of the fire with the back of your hand.
It should be nice and cool. Remember, if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave.
So if it's still hot, keep pouring water and stirring until it's cold.
This process is actually a lot like putting out your charcoal grill. So remember, whatever fire you're putting out, it's pour, stir, pour again, and then check the heat. Smokey's gonna chime in again to help put it all together.
Every year, humans habitually gather for what they call the summer barbecue. Unfortunately, leaving hot coals improperly extinguished can cause a wildfire. Now, could it be? By George, it's Smokey Bear. These friends are going to learn a thing or two about extinguishing hot coals. Indeed, it looks as if Smokey is going to use the drown, stir, drown, and feel technique. After the first drown, a good stir. Next, another long quenching drink for the hot coals. Chilling. And finally, a close feel to confirm they're safe to leave. Smokey has this mastered.
Cool? Okay.
Bang on, Smokey.
Hey, Smokey. Catch. Oh. My bad, Smokey.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I'm an assistant to help you prevent wildfires.
Dude, I've got this. I've been camping since I was 5 years old.
But I am a camping influencer.
You know what? I'll bet you $5. Okay. Assistant Smokey, what is the best way to put out a campfire?
To put out a campfire, drown with water, stir, drown again. Then make sure the fire is out cold by feeling with the back of your hand.
Wait, really?
I'll take the $5.
Thanks, Smokey.
Now we know the things that we can do right now to help prevent wildfires from ever happening. But there are a lot of different folks who actually have fire prevention jobs.
Like Beth, Linda, and Kara.
Right. So let's check back in with them. Thanks for the help, Genesis. I'll be back in just a little bit.
You got it.
All right, cool.
There are a bunch of different careers that all work together to prevent wildfires. You might already be familiar with hand crews, hot shots, or heli-tac crews, which are specially trained to use helicopters to fight wildfires. Now, these are people who work to put fires out once they've already gotten started. But let's talk a little bit about the people who work to prevent fires before they even get going. Beth, Mary, and Kara are all here to tell us about some of those jobs. Beth, you're a fire ecologist. Can you tell us a little bit about what that actually means?
Sure. As a fire ecologist, like Genesis explained, I look at the effects of fire on the natural world, whether it's trees, it's flowers, animals, insects, the air, and even effects on people. So I look at fire's role, where it should be, where it shouldn't be, how often it should be there. And so when we talk about fires that shouldn't be there, you know, we talk about wildfires because they're unplanned and may not be in the right place or the right time. And they can cause damage sometimes to the vegetation, the soils, to our waterways, and unfortunately, even to neighborhoods. So something else that I do as a big part of my job is I help plan prescribed fires. And you and Genesis talked about this as well. These are the good fires that you mentioned, because often fire managers intentionally set fires to burn up the debris that fuels a wildfire. So we're preventing wildfires. If a wildfire does start in that same area, there's not so much fuel to burn. And then firefighters can put what we tend to call bad fires out more easily. It's important to know also, always remember that when we, the fire professionals, start a prescribed fire, we only do it under weather conditions that allow us to predict the fire behavior so the fire does what we want it to do.
Interesting. And that all makes sense. So thanks, Beth. Mary, you're also a fire ecologist. Is there anything that you want to add about just that, about being a fire ecologist?
Well, everything Beth said is similar for me. I work in the Southwest in Arizona. We also have grasslands and forests. We have shrublands, which some people call chaparral, and we have desert. In our desert, if you think of the cartoon Roadrunner, you see those big cacti going by, the saguaro cactus. We have those as well. So some of our systems, and the desert is one, don't do well with fire, but pretty much everything else we have needs fire. Without the good fire, there's going to be more bad fire. So we depend on wildfire and prescribed fire to get us good effects, but we have to be very careful. When we put fire in the ground, sometimes for prescribed fire, even, we will bring in hotshot crews and helitack to help us get the right kind of fire on the ground. My role as a fire ecologist is to help understand where fire is needed, when is a good time for us to put fire on the ground, and to help people understand what it is fire needs to do. If you think about your house or your classroom, if nobody came and cleaned it up, it would get kind of messy after a while. So one of the things fire does is kind of works like a janitor and cleans things up. That's a short version.
And what an interesting picture. I can see that. Getting rid of the fuels that we don't want sitting around all around the ground. All right. Now, Kara, it's your turn. You are a fire physicist. Now that sounds fancy, and it's so fun to try to spell without the use of spell check. Can you tell us what a fire physicist does?
Absolutely. It's fun to say 3 times in a row as well, isn't it? So I study the fire, how that fire that Beth and Mary are working with moves around on the ground, right? How does the fire shaped, how does it interact with the particular fuels that we're talking about? How it might interact with the atmosphere, and how that all feeds on itself to grow or shrink. What can we do to help control it in various ways? So you can think of me almost as an energy detective. I'm in there looking at how much energy is going into and coming out of the fire and exchanging between the fire and the atmosphere from one moment to the next.
Wow, I think I learned a little bit about the thermodynamic, the first law of thermodynamics in college, and now you're explaining it to young people through the use of fire. All right, this is also fascinating. You all have such interesting work. I'm curious, how did you become interested in your particular job? Let's start with you, Beth.
I love what I do, but the truth is, when I was in high school, I knew nothing about fire ecology. As a matter of fact, I wanted to be a veterinarian. But when I got to college, my friends were studying forestry, and I really got interested in the natural world and started taking classes. Then my first job after college was in a national park, and there I learned that fire is part of the natural world. And like you guys talked about earlier, many plants and animals rely on fire to maintain their habitat. But of course, I also learned that fire can do a lot of damage if it happens at the wrong place or the wrong time, like Mary talked about. So that's why it's so important to know Smokey's 5 rules of fire prevention.
Got it. Thanks, Beth. Now, how about you, Mary? You all have the same job. Did you come into your career in the same way?
There are some similarities, but not quite. The first wildfire or any kind of fire that I saw on the land was when I was 7 years old, and I was on a vacation with my parents in Glacier National Park. I thought it was great fun to watch the air tankers come in, and I've always remembered that. But it was when I was in college as well, like Beth, when I first started to see fire as something that I could maybe do, and I got more and more interested. Beth, like you, I started with the Park Service and went from there to the Forest Service. I've worked in Iowa, South Dakota, New Mexico, Nebraska, and now I'm in Arizona as a fire ecologist. So I get to travel all over, and every year I learn more and I want to know more. So it's absolutely intriguing.
So fascinating. You've been all around the country doing this. That's great. All right. So how about you, Kara? How did you become interested in being a fire physicist?
Good question. So I started off just wanting to be a physicist at the age of 5. I was convinced that I was going to build the rocket that launched my younger brother into space. And we would run around our house for years. We tormented our parents with this idea that I was going to launch him into space and they would have to say goodbye. So we were totally dedicated to this vision. And then I got into high school and I was like, oh man, there's like even more cool things that you can do with physics than just launch rockets, which notably is quite cool. And I got into college and started taking classes in physics and became a physics major. I was also studying music at the time. And I had to make a decision, do I want to be a musician? Do I want to be a physicist? They were both really fun. Went with physicist. Years later, I found myself in a job at the Missoula Fire Sciences Laboratory. I was just trying to try out different science jobs. Oh, I fell in love. It was awesome. Back to thermodynamics, Amchat, right? Like that's where it hit home. All that energy sleuthing came to pass. Plus, you're talking about like all this hot stuff that's splashing in with all this cold stuff. Super cool, right? Great fun. Now, the cool turn of events is I've pulled music and sound back into my work. So I now think about the sound of fire again and think about that music training as part of what I do every day.
Wow. And so you've been the conductor of the symphony of your career here. This is so fun. Thank you all for sharing. Now, of course, fire ecologists and fire physicists are not the only experts in fire science. I was lucky enough to catch up with Jessica Prince, who's a fire prevention technician. Now this is so important because she also helps prevent wildfires before they start. Let's take a look at what she has to say.
My name is Jessica Prince, and I'm a fire prevention technician on the Tahoe National Forest in Northern California. A fire prevention technician is someone who specializes in education, enforcement, and engineering, as well as fire suppression here on the forest. I feel our job is super important because we're able to preserve the lands that we serve and all the public that come here to visit. We're able to educate people anywhere from the Smokey Bear program to driving dispersed roads and educating campers and hikers, as well as our public that live here in the wildland urban interface about defensible space and safe debris burning. I chose my career kind of in a funny way. I guess I just loved the outdoors, and as a teenager I thought I would get a job working on the recreation crew here locally in the town that I lived in. As I got a little bit older, I thought it'd be more fun to fight fire, and so I got trained to be a wildland firefighter and found love for the prevention program, and I've been there ever since. My favorite part about my position is the diversity. Every day is a new day. Not only do I get to do fire prevention and try to keep fires small, but getting to learn the roads and being able to do rapid response to initial attack fires, building relationships with our cooperators in our community, as well as doing emergency medical response. It's really a neat position to be able to give back to the public that we serve. Remember, only you can prevent wildfires.
Thanks, Jessica. Another way that fire prevention specialists keep fires from happening is that they get out there and talk to people. They talk to communities, host meetings, and teach kids in schools, sharing many of the tips that we've shared with you in this program. Communication is key. In fact, the Smokey Bear ad campaign has been extremely successful ever since it started back in 1944. The Cooperative Forest Fire Prevention Program, or CFFP, along with the Association of State Foresters and the Ad Council. Now, these three agencies use all kinds of messaging, social media, and advertising campaigns to continue to spread the message that only you can prevent wildfires. So, if you're a student with an interest in something like advertising or communications, this could still be a career that might interest you. I mean, really, there are tons of ways of doing the things that you're already interested in, and you can do them to benefit the lands that we all love. So, Beth, Mary, and Kara, we have fire physicists, fire ecologists, fire prevention technicians, and fire prevention communicators. Are there any other careers available in wildfire prevention?
Oh, there are lots, MChat. Like Jessica, you can work in fire prevention at a lot of different levels, right? Specialists who do local education and implementation plans. And then once things get riskier, those same folks can build in larger teams that come tackle a really big challenge around a community or multiple communities. They reduce those unwanted human-caused fire ignitions through prevention and education. You could also come join with us and be fire scientists. We study all of these different environmental conditions. We could study fire behavior, how the fire moves around, the effects of the fire. These can all also can predict the potential for wildfire and offer options before, during, and after wildfires and prescribed fires. So those are some of the folks that I can think of. Beth, can you think of any more? What have I missed?
Well, actually, we've talked about the folks that work with the public. We talked about that a lot, and Jessica's one of those folks. And like MChat mentioned earlier, and we've talked about this in other events, other live events. We've got folks that can help suppress the fires after they do start. Our firefighters include people that work on the ground and tackle fire from the air as well. So MChat, you mentioned hotshot crews. Those are the elite firefighters that are right there in the most remote areas working on suppressing wildfires. We have firefighters that work with a fire engine. We have people that jump out of airplanes to fight fires. And as a matter of fact, Jessica mentioned that she fights fires when she's not out educating people about fires. And, I work with a lot of those folks all the time, teaching them about the fire ecology of the area. And so when you work for the Forest Service, you actually, regardless of what your title is, you can do a lot of all of these different jobs because all of them are so important. So one day you might be out talking to the public. The next day you might be suppressing a wildfire. Another day you might be working on a prescribed fire. So we work with the bad fire and we work with the good fire to prevent the likelihood of a wildfire. So like Jessica said, every day is different, and I encourage all of you to think about working for the Forest Service.
This is also interesting. Quick fun fact, Beth. When I was learning how to build trails, one of my favorite instructors, she was a hotshot. She actually managed a hotshot crew. Her name was Bethany. So for the folks at home, you don't have to be named Beth or Bethany to be in these careers, but it doesn't seem to hurt. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. All right. So in all seriousness, it's not just the Forest Service, but actually a whole bunch of different agencies that work together to help prevent wildland fires. Now, if you want to dive into this a little bit further, I really highly recommend you check out the Natural Inquirer scientist cards. The scientist cards tell you all kinds of information about scientists and engineers, what they do, how they got started, and their favorite thing about their job. So be sure to check them out on the Natural Inquirer website. Now, maybe you're a few years away from being a professional wildland fire prevention specialist, but there are still ways that you can help right now. You can always become a junior forest ranger. The Junior Forest Ranger program uses the USDA Forest Service guidelines and studies to encourage kids just like you, usually age 7 to 13, to have fun and to love the outdoors. It also teaches kids how to help maintain the natural world. So you can sign up right on the Forest Service website. Just in case you still think that there aren't any any wildfire prevention jobs near you, I want to let you know that we have them everywhere in the United States. In fact, Beth, I know we've heard a little bit about what the folks in the West can do to prevent wildfires, but wildfires can happen pretty much anywhere in the country too, right?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Wildfires can occur anywhere that there's vegetation that's burnable. So that's all across the country. Definitely California, like we talked about. Alaska, Maine, down to Florida. Fires can start anywhere. For example, in forests where the leaf litter and the pine needles are dry, fires can start in fields and grasslands. Actually, I didn't know if you realize this, but there's more ignitions in the eastern United States than the west, maybe because we have more people. But here's another neat fact for you. I don't know if you've ever been to the Florida Everglades, where the tall grass grows out of the water. That grass actually can burn. Fires actually can burn across the water through those grasslands, which we call the Everglades. So my take-home message is wherever you are, you need to be careful about fire.
Oh, so important. Yes, we all have to be careful with fire. Wow, fire walking on water, that sounds like miraculous. All right, so Kara, can you tell us a little bit about what prescribed fire is? Because we heard that a couple of times, that phrase. And is it also true that we have prescribed fires in all of our regions and not just in the very dry parts?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So prescribed fire is an intentional fire that's there to help balance out the system that might be a little bit out of balance for one reason or another, or to reach an objective, likely for safety, also for ecological health, right? So there's a whole suite of reasons why we would want prescribed fire on the land, and it occurs everywhere. So here's my fun fact. Over 10 million acres of prescribed fire was burned last year. 10 million, that's crazy. MJ, you told us at the very beginning of this that 193 million acres were taken care of just by the Forest Service. Now, the Forest Service accounts for about, like 1.5, maybe a little bit more of that in prescribed fire. So there's a whole lot of other professionals out there who are help taking care of our ecological health and our human health and safety.
Go teamwork. All right, so this is for you all at home. We can see that we do need everybody everywhere to be careful with wildfire. So you are a part of the team. Now, speaking of everywhere, we have a couple of questions coming in from viewers all around the country. Let's see if right now we can just see if we can get to a couple of those. I have two. One is, somebody's thinking about the careers. They're asking, what is the beginning salary for a job like yours or jobs in fire?
Oh boy, that's a fantastic question. It depends on what job we're talking about. Geez, for scientists, I want to say somewhere around 60,000 a year seems like a good even number. Mary Beth, do you have thoughts on that?
I don't think I could come up with a specific number, but if you start at the basic, we call it a firefighter 2, that's an entry-level firefighter position, you will end up working on wildfires where you'll have overtime and you'll have hazard pay. It's seasonal, so sometimes that works. Once you're in college, you can only work in the summer then. That works. And then there's lots of places you can go from there in the career world.
Right. If you check out the USA Jobs website, you can learn about what the skills are for different positions for all kinds of jobs in the federal government.
Cool, very thorough, and you all got to answer it. Thank you. Another quick one. Let's see if we can get to it real fast. How often do lightning strikes make wildfires in the Southwest?
We have outside of Florida, and our forest has the highest lightning load in the country. I would say every year we have dozens and hundreds. From a fire ecology perspective, there should be, and often are, dozens, hundreds of fires burning across the West at any one time. Mostly we get our big wildfires in May and June when it's super hot and dry. And then we have a monsoon season where it rains a lot and we have a lot more fires. Those are mostly good fires that produce good effects in August and September.
I'm looking at our clock, and That's why my face is getting a little bit sad, because we have to start to go to close and we've only got to answer 2 questions so far. But man, what a great show this has been. Thank you. Thank you so much, Beth, Mary, and Kara. That's all the time we have today with y'all, our experts. Let's check back in one more time with Genesis and Smokey as we wrap up.
Thanks, MChat.
Absolutely. The importance of preventing wildfires should be clear by now, as well as what you can do to help.
When in doubt, remember Smokey Bear's 5 rules of wildfire prevention. Only you can prevent wildfires. Always be careful with fire. Never play with matches or lighters. Always watch your campfire. And make sure your campfire is completely out before leaving it.
And I want to thank Smokey Bear for joining us today. And I hope that this program has inspired you to take some time to learn more about his rules. You can also go to his website to learn more about Smokey.
Also, we'd love to hear from you about this program. Send us a message or a question to fsconservationeducation@gmail.com, or tell us what you've been doing to protect the land from wildfire.
Lastly, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. My super smart cousin Genesis, our guests Beth, Linda, and Kara, as well as the folks answering questions online.
And of course, a big thanks to you for watching. If you're interested in other programs like this one, check them out at fsnaturelive.org. We have programs on climate change, freshwater, grasslands, pollinators, and much more.
In fact, we have one coming up later this month called Moon Trees Live.
The Forest Service and NASA will launch hundreds of tree seeds that will orbit the moon on board Artemis 1. Students will be able to talk to scientists live about the project on October 27th, 2022 at 1:00 p.m. Eastern Time.
So blast off and be sure to check that one out. See you then.
Bye.